So this is the 2019 Arbor Clovis, and spent a few days on this and compared this to some of the Good Ride favorites, and it did a pretty good job. It didn't blow any of them away, but it definitely didn't feel like a slouch either, like it wasn't in, like it didn't deserve to be in the company of these favorites. So, you know, all in all, pretty fun board, and it got completely retooled for 2019. 2018, it was kind of like a weird twin. It was, you know, a double ender with a super long tail and a kind of a short nose. It felt like a shorter nose than tail. And it was centered, and when you set it up centered like you were supposed to, it felt like the tail, there was more tail than nose. It felt like you set it too far forward. Then they added setback inserts the following year to kind of correct that a little bit, and it made it a little better. But then in 2019, they just did a complete redesign that really helped you know, bring this board around to what it probably always should have been, a tapered directional free ride board that can also, you know, be pretty competent if you want to take it switch and kind of take a little bit more of a centered approach to riding the mountains. And it's centered on side cut, and now it's a little bit wider in the waist. It's not massively wider, but just, you know, like I think it was like a 25.1 or something like that. Now it's like a 25.7 for this. This is the 59. And and then, you know, it's got like 8 mil of taper, which is kind of, you know, standard for, you know, a free ride board. It's got a longer nose now. The tail's shorter. It's been cut back a little bit, but it still has that cool kind of arrowhead design and this deep, rich wood. It's, you know, and then on top of that, it's centered on side cut, but there's a decent setback on board, and we'll get into that in a sec. It also has, you know, their system camber technology, which you can see the grip tech right here. And let me give you a look and see if you can see the little, you know, bumps. And there's some nice bumps along here that give you a little extra edge hold. And when you lay it down flat, it's full camber, but the sides, like, you know, it just kind of, here, let me lift it up again. It just kind of like goes like this, like a fender on a car on both areas. And it kind of like lifts the contact points that are the most catchy, so it makes it very catch-free for camber. So it isn't like traditional camber at all. It's not that crazy technical, punishing, cartwheeling, super catchy, put you in the hospital kind of traditional camber. And this is very like mostly camber. It doesn't really have like early rise that helps with float per se. Maybe this little fender work might help a little bit and give it a little extra float than traditional camber, but it's probably, you know, from what I've experienced, it's not quite there with something with early rise or something with rocker in the middle, any of the hybrid, kind of more hybrid, you know, lifted shapes, you know, entirely not lifted from the sides, lifted from, you know, the entire board. But anyways, it's very stable and very catch-free for camber, so that's great. And then you've got, you know, a 7x2 insert, which is great. I love that Arbor does that with all their boards. It's really, it helps you just with, you know, a little more stance with adjustability if you want to set it back a little more or what have you. And let's get into that. Let's do some easy math. That's hard for the old man here. We're looking at 18.25 all the way in with traditional discs, and 24.5 all the way out. Now, if we're gonna, let's see the difference between the nose and tail. We're looking at just about 24.5, kind of in between the two. Yeah, I'd say, you know, any between 24.25 and 24.5. And then we're looking at 16. So we'll just say 8.5. That's easy math. 8.5. There's an 8.5 difference between the nose and tail. And then it's 4.25 back on board. if we want to talk about setback on board, which is pretty cool for something with a centered stance on side cut. You know, it's set up centered on side cut. And then you add, you know, but if you're setting it all the way back and you're talking about directional float and powder, you can, you know, you can get pretty far back on board. Four and a quarter is pretty far back, I believe. I think that's what we said. It was 8.5, and yeah, so divide by 2, 4 and a quarter. So, and then if you have like mini discs, like maybe the Arbor Cypress, you can get, you know, basically almost 0.75 further of a difference between nose and tail, and you know, divide that in 2, like 37.5 or something like that. But anyways, you can, you know, you can get a little bit further back on board with mini discs, and all in all, I thought it was a fun board. It's kind of heavy. It can handle a little, you know, it can bust through a little chunder, and I don't think being heavy is a bad thing at all. I actually would rather have a board lean on the heavy side than lean on the light side, because it just seems like no matter what they do, the lighter the board, the more the chatter, the more it doesn't handle micro bumps. This just, you know, it's more bomb friendly, it's more uneven snow friendly, it's more Saturday resort friendly. So that's cool. And then you can see the base, it's die cut and what have you, and kind of a weird orange that might not do very well when it comes to repair, but it kept its speed really well, and it's got good glide to it. So all in all, I think the Clovis is finally like a board that can be recommendable now. And if you want something that has like traditional camber from tip to tail, but not the catch of traditional camber thanks to this uprise fender technology, and you want kind of like a tapered free ride board that can also ride switch and kind of double up as like a kind of surfy mountain freestyle board, then this could be a great fit. So there you have it, Clovis.